I had only just started up the first flight of stairs when Cyril met me on the landing. He turned and motioned towards the upper flight before speaking, lowering his voice so it wouldn't carry back to her. The seamstress's father and brother were amongst the militia who killed her parents. For a moment, I didn't move. This was precisely the sort of oversight I swore she would never suffer again, yet the fault was plainly mine. Since we'd retaken the region, Grace had been spared daily proximity to the men who took her. It seemed reasonable to believe that once they had been arrested and dispersed, the danger to her had been neutralized. Rifles confiscated, cells filled, public unrest contained. But what we couldn't contain were her memories of what they'd done to her. It had been several weeks since she'd been required to be in the presence of any of them. The bakery settled into a reliable order, watched over by men who sounded like home and behaved accordingly, and it was I who disturbed it. "She was caught off guard by seeing her here with you, I suppose," he said. I paused long enough to consider what might be said to repair the injury I'd already caused until he moved his eyebrow enough to regain my attention. "You could not have known, Christian. There are nearly 16 years' worth of ghosts in the poor girl's mind, and we have not yet met all of them. You must be prepared for these bumps in the road." But to find myself the source of her pain was unacceptable. If this fracture were left unattended, it would only widen, and I wouldn't permit that. "If you care to return to London with us," I said to him as I passed him, "we depart Sunday morning. Word just arrived." "My dear fellow," he said as he backed to the lower staircase, "I should be a fool not to see this through to the end." Grace sat at the top of the second flight near her bedroom door, folded inward, arms wrapped around herself, head lowered like a child who had nowhere else to go. I heard her crying, and the knowledge that I had brought her to it was not something I took lightly. I prided myself on foresight, on anticipating every threat before it reached her. Yet in attempting to manage matters without her, I caused the harm I meant to prevent. Protection, I was learning too late, was not the same thing as being a comfort to her. I couldn't force matters upon her, and I wouldn't drag her through recollections she wasn't yet prepared to face. But the restraint I showed hadn't served her as I intended. I kept myself available to her in principle, yet withheld the affection she required. And if she were to remember who she is, she must first remember who we are. So if that must begin with me, so be it. I'd negotiated with hostile men and won, but I didn't know how to negotiate with her pain, so I climbed the remaining steps, giving thought to how to accomplish that, and took the stair below hers, leaning back against the wall before turning to see her properly. "Grace." She drew herself in tightly, and I reached into her guarded space, setting my hands on her cheeks and guiding her towards me, not roughly, but with enough insistence so she couldn't withdraw. "Look at me." She held herself apart for a moment longer before lifting her eyes to mine. The past lived somewhere in her still. I saw her constantly reaching for it. It was the look of someone who knows a door exists but cannot yet find the handle. "You know me," I said. "Not in full, perhaps, but when I walked into your shop and you heard my name, you recognized me. Yes?" The devastation left her face the instant I gave voice to what she had suspected since I first walked through her door, the tears easing as she nodded. I saw then that she was not lost at all. She was only standing where I left her when we said our goodbyes all those years ago, waiting for me to come and take her the rest of the way. I moved up until nothing separated us and brought my forehead to hers, close enough to take more if I chose. But the proximity, after everything it cost to find her, made the restraint itself feel so sweet I couldn't resist letting it go on. "I would sooner cut out my own heart than break yours," I said. "Had I known who that woman was, I never would have allowed her past your threshold, for it has ever been my duty to protect you." I withdrew my hand and took my place at her side, my arm resting behind her as I drew her in. What followed might loosen memories or provoke anger. Either would be warranted, and I'd answer for my part in it. My family has served the Rowens for many centuries, so when I was 17, I gave the Earl my word that I would find you, I had no other plan for my life, only this. I signed my commission the same day and have been searching for you ever since. I held out my hand, and she placed hers in it without hesitation, and I knew that whatever line I'd been in danger of crossing existed only on paper and in the minds of men who didn't know her as I did. My only mission in all these years has been you, my lady, so when you leave for England on Sunday, I will be at your side. What I said of vows and commissions seemed to land somewhere beyond her reach. I saw it plainly enough that those matters belonged to a world she had left as a girl and hadn't been permitted to remember. Bloodlines and oaths mean little when one has spent over 15 years keeping the fire lit and the doors open. "But what will we do, Christian?" she asked. "How will we get by with no money?" I had to laugh, not at her, but at the position she imagined herself in. To be told one's future rests with a man who appears to be soon without honest work must sound reckless at best. From her vantage point, it would appear she were about to exchange the little stability she had built for uncertainty. The concern was reasonable, entirely so. But what she didn't yet understand was that I had never permitted my fortunes to depend upon a uniform or my family name. There was more than enough set aside so that we might step away from it all if we wished. A proper house, a livelihood of our own choosing, comfort without dependence upon either of our families. We would never know want. That had never been the point, though. She'd already been stripped of what was hers by birth and by right. I wouldn't answer that theft by asking her to live simpler than she was meant to ever again. I drew her nearer with the arm at her back and let her rest against me, her head settling on my shoulder. For the first time since I found her, there was nothing to strategize or keep my distance from, only her trust given to me freely. She wasn't fully the Grace I grew up with, but she was no longer lost to me either. I saw her there now, in the way she leaned into me without fear, giving herself over to me at last. "I have prepared all my life to care for you, my darling," I said, "and I am quite ready to do so." So I kissed her forehead and allowed myself the stillness of the moment. No, it wasn't everything, not yet, but it was enough for one evening. So now I could begin the far more important work of building a life that would make her glad to be mine.